Chris Mellon just dropped a big UFO bombshell, so let's talk about it. Get in here. This is Jack with Cosmic Road. I talk about UFOs and the paranormal. Please hit like and subscribe and let me know what you think in the comments below. Deep Prasad says, Chris just took the gloves off, and he sure did. Jay Anderson, Chris Mellon just dropped a private message between himself and a senior U.S. government official who seemingly just flat out confirmed a crash retrieval program in the retrieval of a U.A.P. in Arizona in the 1950s. So here is what Chris Mellon dropped, are these texts. So yeah, here we go. Blank and I are making huge progress getting into the CR program, the crash retrieval program. He plans to meet with you at some point. The blank would be slack-jawed if they found out what we now know. Blank from Christopher Mellon. Senior USG official says, right now, we haven't gone that far back. We're dealing with a recovered UAP that landed in Kingman, Arizona in the 1950s. We're vacuuming up info as a redacted gets read in. We now know the management structure and security control systems and ownership of the crash retrieval. We also know who recovers landed or crashed UAPs under what authorities. We also know that a still highly classified memo by a Secretary of the Air Force in the 50s is still in effect to maintain the cover on UAPs. We also know the SES-2, who's the Air Force gatekeeper. Now, the Kingman, Arizona UFO crash is a very significant crash, and we're going to get into why that is. There seems to have been at least one live being recovered from that crash that assisted the UFO control group in developing and reverse engineering alien technology. So a very foundational crash. This is from the work of Preston Dennett, who says the UFO crashed May 21st, 1953, about 8 miles northeast of the Kingman Airport, and that government officials sent a team of about 40 scientists to the crash site to investigate. The object was described as metallic, 30 feet wide and 3.5 feet high, oval-shaped with portholes. Inside were 2 to 4 4-foot-tall humanoids, deceased according to most sources, with large eyes and wearing metallic suits. The object was quickly scooped up and taken to either Area 51 base in Nevada or Wright-Patterson. Among the scientists assisting in the recovery was engineer Arthur Stanzel. Preston Dennett writes in UFOs over Arizona, after making measurements and studying the crash site, Stanzel concluded that the craft struck the ground at 1,200 miles per hour, but was strangely undamaged and definitely not human-made. The object was not built by anything obviously that we know about on Earth, Stanzel says. It was more like a teardrop-shaped cigar, like a streamlined cigar. Metallurgist Leonard Stringfield was also on the scene, and after spending 2 days analyzing the craft and materials, concluded that the object was not constructed on Earth. Next to the spacecraft was a tent being guarded by military police, Stanzel says. I managed to glance inside at one point and saw the dead body of a 4-foot human-like creature in a silver metallic suit. The skin on its face was dark brown. And then, of course, there was the cover-up. And here's some additional information.
The craft was 30 feet in diameter, 14 feet tall. That's what you see in the drawing that I've put together here. Yeah. It had a series of slots going around the outer circumference of the disc. There was a small entry hatch on the lower portion of the rim, a brushed aluminum surface. It was found to be buried about 20 inches into the sand at about a 15-degree angle of attack. There were 4 humanoid figures found with the craft when the military got there. Now, according to Harry Drew, there was one that was in front of the other 3, who apparently was the quote-unquote commander. And just to go a little bit forward in this story, there was a communication between the high-level military brass and this particular commander. And he said, quote-unquote, we will go with you only under one condition, that you do not separate us. And so that was the communication that was made between members of the retrieval team and also these beings that were, if you look at a 5'10" man, they came up to his shoulder, according to Harry Drew.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
there's no description in these illustrations, unless I'm missing it, of these beings.
No,
Do we have any? Okay.
Only from the testimony from Arthur Stanzel. He said that the eyes were slightly further apart than ours, and they had a pointed chin. That's the description I've got in the report.
But not, so therefore not what we would call the quintessential grays, or even like the description of the beings from the Aztec crash.
More humanoid looking.
Yeah.
More humanoid, but not your typical gray.
Now, of course, Bill Uhouse, engineer Bill Uhouse, is famous for interacting with a being named J-Rod that may have come from the Kingman crash. Here he is talking a little bit about Kingman.
The simulator wasn't actually functional until around 1958, where the simulator was actually operable. Craft that they used to build, which is a 30-meter one, was the one that crashed in Arizona, Kingman, Arizona, back in 53 or 52. I think it was 53. That's the one they used. That's the first one that they took out to the test site. It landed about 15 miles from, which used to be an Army air base, which is now a defunct Army base. I forget, I can't recall the name of it. But that particular craft, there were some problems with, number one, getting it on the flatbed to take it up to Area 51. They couldn't get it across the dam because of the road. It had to be barged across the Colorado River at the time, and then taken up to where people go now, up 93, out to Area 51, which was just being really constructed at the time, and taken down those dirt roads and out to that particular area of the test site. There were 4 aliens aboard that thing, and those aliens went to Los Alamos, and they put certain people in there with them, people that were astrophysicists, just general scientists, to ask them questions. The way the story was told to me was there was only one of them that would talk to any of these scientists that they put in the lab with them. Only one of the aliens. The rest wouldn't talk to anybody or, even have a conversation with them. First they thought, it was all, ESP or, what do I want to say?
Telepathy?
Yeah, mental telepathy. But, most of that is kind of a joke to me because they actually speak, maybe not like we do, but they actually speak and can converse, The difference between this aircraft or this disc and other discs that they had looked at was that it was much simpler design. These particular capacitors, they last for 30 minutes, so you could get in there and actually work the controls and do what you had to get the aircraft or get the simulator, the disc to operate, okay? Actually, when it was operable, it would lift off the ball about a certain amount there was a dimension there that we had. Upside down, there's no upside down like in a regular aircraft.
Bill Uhouse actually got to meet one of these beings and work with him, J-Rod, the being J-Rod. And J-Rod was helping them develop this training device that Bill Uhouse worked on. And Don Phillips, a Skunkworks engineer, talked about how his fellow engineers, possibly like Bill Uhouse, were working on this training device. So Bill Uhouse isn't alone in talking about this. So if the Kingman UFO crash is now confirmed by Chris Mellon, that also might go a long way to corroborating Bill Uhouse's testimony about a live being or multiple live beings working with the control group back in the early 50s or back in the 50s to develop this alien technology, to develop their own UFOs. This could be the genesis for the control group getting their own UFOs and working with the beings. Here's what he had to say about J. Rod and his interactions with the engineers and what they were working on.
Basically, it was only engineering advice or science advice, where the top mathematicians and stuff couldn't figure some of this stuff out. So we would take it, and then, you know, we'd have to, with each design, you know, there's a requirement for calculations. And we'd have to prove by calculations, you know, that this thing's going to operate. No different than anything else we do. And sometimes you get into a spot where you try and try and try, and even if you use the formulas to come up with this thing that they'd provide you, it wouldn't work. And that's where he'd come in, you know, to tell him to look at this and see what we did wrong.
Okay, so there you go. J-Rod telling them what they were doing wrong. The beings assisting these Lockheed Martin Skunkworks people in developing UFO technology. So hats off to Chris Mellon for sharing this with us. This is a game changer because this, like I say, it goes a long way to corroborate beings working with the control group back in the day and presumably still working with them now. Now, the beings from the Kingman crash, they were, you know, victims of a crash. So the question then is, are we working with any beings that didn't come from a crash? The answer to that seems to be yes as well. And the evidence for that is many experiencer accounts with government and military types working with the beings during abductions. And then you have information like the Terry Lovelace incident when there were a few military humans aboard a giant UFO piloted by the beings, non-human beings, and there was a group abduction that was being carried out, and the military guys were assisting with that abduction. And those were not beings in a crash, those were beings in a big UFO that was bigger on the inside than it was on the outside. Observer of Anomalous Objects makes this point. The fact it was written in 2020 and cleared for publication in 2024, and it is all documented, means this article is legit, that these texts are legit. So yeah, there you go, guys. The Kingman UFO crash retrieval, as now confirmed by Chris Mellon, is and was legit. And so now it would be wonderful if we could confirm the testimony of Bill Uhouse and Don Phillips and others who were talking about the beings working with engineers assisting in developing training devices so that they could fly their own UFOs and get this technology to work. It seems like they did, based on all the reports of the military and government flying their own UFOs. But let me know what you think about all this in the comments below. And if you've enjoyed this video, please give me a big thumbs up. I sure would appreciate it. Smash the like button and the subscribe button and the bell to be notified of future videos. You don't want to miss a thing. Join me on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Discord, links below. Love to see you guys there. If you wanted to support Cosmic Road in an even bigger way, consider grabbing a coffee mug or a t-shirt in the merch store below, or by becoming a channel member, because channel members are rock stars and I really appreciate you guys' support. Thank you. Also, channel members frequently get to see videos hours ahead of everybody else. Meanwhile, there's plenty of other videos on the channel, and I'll see you guys next time. This is Jack with Cosmic Road, signing out.